Hey everybody, this is Pat, and for this episode I've searched YouTube to find videos about the Prowler, and today I'll be reviewing the reviewers. So with all of us stuck at home and thanks to the coronavirus, my travels with the Prowler have been much more limited since I can't do any grocery shopping with this car and I'm not exactly going out for exercise, except for the car getting exercise. So I started thinking about other Prowler related topics that I could go over. It occurred to me there's a lot of other videos out there on YouTube that, there's a lot of presenters out there providing a lot of facts, some which are right, some which are wrong, and also a wide variety of opinions, some good, some not so good. So I want to share some of the highlights to give you a good idea what all is out there about the Prowler. My plan is to start out with more obscure videos out there, some of them maybe you haven't seen before, and then work my way towards some of the more popular and well-known. So here's a little preview of the videos that I'll be reviewing here today. So the first one I wanted to go over is a guy out here who calls himself the TheSketchMonkey. He actually does some really amazing drawings that he does on his computer. And he tries to render examples of cars that were made many years ago and try to envision what they would look like if they were designed today. Gotta check this guy out. There's a lot of just amazing drawings that he does. And what he thinks of the Prowler, I don't necessarily agree on all of it that it looks like it should be, but if it was made today, yeah, that's probably the way it would look. So definitely check this guy out. Also out there, it doesn't take long to be able to find lots of videos out there showing video games that involve the Prowler. Now, the Forza video game that was made for Xbox, the version 3 actually had the Prowler in it. Now, when they came out with the version 4 version, they dropped the Prowler. It was no longer in the game, which is disappointing. But my son actually had a copy of it back when the Prowler was in it. And it was fun to be able to watch the Prowler in action and be able to drive it. Admittedly, though, I found that it was kind of harder for me to drive that than any other car because, like any car in these games, the rules of physics don't apply. And you can drive them as fast as you want, and you can crash into anything you want, it doesn't hurt the car. But when I was crashing this car, it was a lot harder for me to do. It's harder to even a virtual version of your car, to actually go out and start driving it this way and crashing into things and actually then seeing some of the damage on the car. It was hard to see. So honestly, it's hard for an owner of this car to do it, but these games are still really cool, and the graphics are amazing. So definitely check them out if you can. There's also out there, one guy actually did a video of just a review of the Diecast model of the Prowler. This one happens to be the version of it that was the concept version of the car. I actually have a version of this one myself. In this video, he pretty much just shows the same car going all the different things that are on the car. It's a long video of him just showing that car, but again, it's just amazing when you see some of the things that people actually do videos of. So speaking of the diecast version of the car, there's another video out there. It's an old version of a video from Top Gear. This is the show before it had Jeremy and Richard and James in it. In fact, I'm not really sure who this guy is that's in it, but it's a neat little video to watch. This is the concept version of the car that this guy is driving around back in 1996, and even more amazing is that he has it in Britain. There actually never was a right-hand drive version of this car ever made, although there are some pictures out there that show that people have actually made their own versions as right-hand drive.
The Prowler started life as a show car but goes into full production next year. It's rear-wheel drive, the chassis is aluminium or aluminum, and the rest is as stark as a hot rod should be. You can have it any colour you like as long as it's purple, and there's a 3.5 litre V6 to turn it into a bit of a growler.
And it's interesting when he comes up and says statements like this one.
Because the Prowler is plenty quick. 0 to 60 in 7 seconds and 120 megs.
Now, most people today would say 0 to 60 in 7 seconds, big deal, but back then I guess it was. And it's also neat the way he wraps up the video by saying this.
The Plymouth Prowler. This is what we like. This is what we want.
There's another video out there from a TV show that was called Motoring TV 97. And this one actually is pretty cool. It was recorded obviously in 1997. It has some of the original people involved with the car in the video, including Tom Gale. You get to see them driving around on the track with the car, which is pretty cool. Also, this is where one of the speeches I included in one of my earlier videos that Bob Lutz did is also here.
Prowler keeps our sense of focus sharp. Just as with Viper, This is an exercise in polarity. Those who don't get it or don't like it never will, and that's fine with us. But
And then they also make this comment, which is good to hear.
Plymouth has had a reputation to be a staid vehicle, and now they have the Prowler, probably the most outrageous vehicle ever built on a production basis. So, I mean, they can't help but win.
You know, we first went back to the guys and said, look, we're going to put the headlamps on the side of the car. And they said, you know, you got to be kidding me. But here we are.
So the next one I want to go over is about the TV show MotorWeek. Now, this is a show that's been around for like 35 years. It started back in the 80s. I used to watch this show a lot when I was younger. I started watching it probably in the 90s. Back then it was on public television, so that's the only way you could watch it. Nowadays you can see all the old clips on YouTube. Anyway, back to the Prowler video. This one obviously was done back in '97 when the car was new. Only had the purple version. And they do some neat shots of the car, some neat reviews of the car. But like most MotorWeek reviews, they're usually pretty kind to the car. There's not a whole lot of cars out there that they come right out and bash everything about it. They're usually saying good things throughout there, including statements like this one.
Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, anticipation of the Prowler's arrival currently measures a solid 100.
They also provide the engine specs, which again, nowadays would not look very good, but they didn't think it was too bad back then. I think it's funny when they say this statement about the 0 to 60 time.
0 to 60 is a short 7.5 seconds.
And at the end of the video, I was quite surprised with this one statement they mentioned about the 69 Barracuda.
Now, Plymouth hasn't had a car to call its own since the 1969 Barracuda.
And it makes sense when you think about it, because the Prowler was the only unique car that they'd had for many, many years. Back in the 80s and 90s, all their cars were rebadged versions of other Chrysler and Dodge cars. So this was great that they were able to finally come up with a unique model. Too bad it was the last one. So then I found a video out here from a guy named Charles Phelps. Now, when you watch the video, it says a lot of nice things about the car. And so at first you're kind of thinking, hey, this is going to be a great review.
In the late 90s, retro was all the rage in cars. Plymouth, well, they knew they could do it too. But they went one step further than anybody else did, and they came out the Plymouth Prowler. Right behind me here, we have a beautiful example of that car. Let's take her for a spin. Let's take a look and see what she's got.
Now, in the description of the video, he does mention that this was his dad's car, so you kind of think that he would probably say some nice things about the car. But then he makes comments about the door openings.
The doors, well, yeah, that's about as far as they open.
And then the cowl shake.
That, my dear friends, is cowl shake.
And then more cowl shake.
Cowl shake.
And then he talks about the week engine.
3.5 liter V6, well, it's nothing too impressive. I mean, it gets the job done, but that's pretty much about it.
And then this statement is unfortunately a little bit disturbing, at least for a Prowler owner.
Years, you'll definitely feel that, but it's really producing a lot of nothing.
And then still more complaints.
So if you can get past the harshness of the suspension and the cowl shake, the lack of a trunk, the lack of just basically everything else, the craptastic Chrysler stereo from the late 90s.
I will admit though, the outside camera shots he has are nice, and hopefully in one of my future videos I can do the same. So next I found a video out here from a guy named Mike. He's got a channel he calls Extreme Auto Addiction. This video was actually an interesting one to watch because I kind of relate to him a little bit with some of the filming that he was trying to do. He was having a little trouble with the sound.
So we're doing 80 down the freeway right now, and I will be surprised if the audio will pick up what I'm saying. I can barely hear what I'm saying.
He didn't have a mic in his car, which he said that wasn't sure if that was going to work, but definitely you can tell without the mic, you can hear how much noise you get, especially when he's on the freeway. So I did like that he showed that. It definitely is louder on the freeway. I can attest to that.
But you know, this car was definitely not intended for performance. It's just not. It's a cool little cruiser, and I'm going to keep saying that. It is what it is, and it doesn't try to pretend to be anything else.
There is one comment he made here about Chip Foose.
The original design was done by Chip Foose himself.
Now, to make it clear, I think Chip Foose is one of the most amazing designers out there. I've seen some of his drawings, they're amazing. But Chip Foose actually wasn't the one who actually designed the Prowler. He came up with a design that definitely influenced the decision on making the car, but I just want to make it clear that he wasn't actually behind the actual design of the car we see today.
And I knew I wanted to build the car one day. I didn't know that they were going to take it. And to say that I designed the Prowler is a slap in the face to the engineers and designers that finished that car. But it was definitely the, shall we say, the birth point of the car.
So this next video is from a guy named Joe Rady. He has a channel called Rady's Rides. And this one that he's doing with the Prowler, he's at a car show here. It's not his car. In fact, I don't think he ever actually met the owner. But he does a walk around here. It's kind of an impromptu review that he does of the car.
Is that an old Ford coupe that's been turned into something? Believe it or not, this is a 1990s car. This is a Plymouth Prowler.
He still brings up the things that most people say about the car, about the V6 engine.
Does it have some big, huge V8? Does it have something with a bunch of power? This car came with a V6, and it didn't have a lot of power. And it didn't even come with a manual transmission. It came with an automatic. So I think at the end of the day, that was one of the bigger letdowns for the car. Even though aesthetically it was so drawing, it just drew you to the car like a moth to a flame. Unfortunately, power-wise, it wasn't there.
I do like this inside shot that he did here of the dashboard because it actually has a couple things there I'd like to do. Noting the yellow Prowler on the steering wheel and also the Prowler script on the far right of the dashboard. Not too bad, I might want to do that myself. But one thing he mentions here is about the automatic transmission.
Enthusiast and somebody who wants to roll through the gears, they didn't even give you the option. And I think that's my biggest disappointment.
Now he mentions here that he can't roll through the gears. Now he might be referring to the fact that because this is not a manual and that a manual is not offered, that might be what he's talking about, but just to be clear, you can technically roll through the gears of the auto stick. Now, I know people that love manual transmissions will say this is not the same, but just want to clarify when he says you can't roll through the gears, technically you can. So there's another video out here from a guy whose channel is Saab Kyle04. I guess he probably owned a Saab at one point. He does quite a long, lengthy review of the Prowler and actually provides a lot of good information.
The Prowler concept first made its public debut during the 1993 North American International Auto Show as an all-new halo car for Plymouth.
A lot of it's very technical, a lot more technical details than I was able to provide in mine. So things that I might have probably should have looked at before I did mine. I can tell in this particular model that he's reviewing here, this 01 Mulholland Blue, is completely stock. I can tell it still has the original tires. I was able to see inside that it still has the original vertical stabilizer links. So not sure how well it was taken care of when certain things like that should have been replaced by now. Of course, he mentions the lack of V8 in a manual. Everybody does that.
The only real thing missing to Mini was the lack of a proper V8 and manual transmission.
He also says something about the unique steering wheel.
And a unique 3-spoke, thick, leather-wrapped steering wheel.
Not sure why he thinks this is a unique steering wheel, other than the fact that it has a Prowler logo on the front, but as I've noted before, this is actually a Jeep Grand Cherokee steering wheel. He also mentions the mirror display, where he says that you have the temperature and the compass.
As well as a standard auto-dimming rearview mirror with built-in compass, as well as outside temperature.
But what he doesn't note is that if you press the little button in the middle there, you can actually go through several other options, like the estimated fuel that's left, your fuel economy, several other things that honestly I don't usually use very much, but I definitely do like the fact that you have the temperature and compass on there. Now, keep in mind that if you have a 97 or a 99 model, this display was not even there. He also mentions the speed compensated volume, which is something that also came out in the 2000 model year like my car.
Power outlet off to the far right, as well as controls for the vehicle's speed compensated volume.
This is kind of nice, so it allows you to have the volume turned down when the car is not moving, but as it gets faster, the volume turns itself up. And finally, I want to mention here that he does mention about the fact that the soft top on this model is blue.
They all come in the signature color and hand-painted pinstripe combination, complemented by a blue soft top.
I did have somebody else leave a comment for me that the Mulholland Blue version did have a blue top. Every other Prowler has a black top. So if you do have to replace the top, if you have a Mulholland Blue model, it's going to be a little harder to find. He also mentions about the fact there's a lack of an adjustment for the height for the passenger.
The passenger seat is also fully manual, but lacks the height adjustment of the driver's seat.
It's only on the driver's side, but that unfortunately causes the driver's seat, even at our lowest position, to be a little bit higher than the passenger seat. So some people actually put risers underneath their passenger seat to make them look more level. But all in all, actually, this was a very good video. I liked a lot of the detail that he provided in this one. And then there's this guy.
All right, today we're bringing it to you live, straight from the Village Chevrolet in Wayzata, Minnesota. We got the Plymouth Prowler. Whoo, look at this bitch.
All these niggas be the same. All these hoes be the same. King, never wanted to be a fiend.
Now actually the music did not last for 10 minutes. It just seemed like that for me. I'm not exactly a big fan. The name of his videos are Tall Guy Car Reviews, and if you look at him, he's 6'10".
Now, as I'm walking up to this car, I am going to remind y'all that I am 6'10", so work with me here.
And so, yeah, he's definitely tall and barely fits in the car.
Here we go. Feet first. Ooh, now look at this. Damn. Oh, shit. Damn head.
I do have to note that to keep this a little more clean for my copy of the video, I'm going to have to bleep a lot of the stuff that he says, because unfortunately this guy drops F-bombs like constantly throughout the entire video.
Now, I reiterate, when I was a kid, this was my dream car, and you couldn't tell me shit about this car. But obviously, I've grown a whole lot since then. I mean, look at my headroom, You've seen my leg room.
Now, at the beginning of the video, he starts talking about the way he loved the car when he was a kid.
I was a huge fan of this car when I was a kid. This was actually my dream car. I remember one time when I was a kid, I seen an all black one. I was amazed.
And initially that was pretty encouraging to me. I thought this would be a really cool video due to the fact that he would probably say a lot of nice things about it if this was his dream car when he was a kid. Unfortunately, the kind words did not last very long. Like he comments about the bad seats.
Now, let's talk about these ugly ass seats. Cool logo, once again, but terrible design.
The hard headrests.
Now, let's touch on this right here. That is hard as that's supposed to be a headrest.
He complains about the convertible top, that you can see all the mechanism inside.
Look at this shit right here. I mean, damn, y'all couldn't hide the mechanics of the drop top at all.
And then there's the auto stick indicators that are on the chrome bezel. Now, this is the way this had to be done.
In 2000, they had something like a paddle shifter in their automatics. Just hit the little button, bam, and bam.
So just make clear, you don't actually have to push these buttons. These are not the way you activate the auto stick. You actually shift the lever back and forth. But he's not the only one who thinks these are actual buttons.
You know, all these buttons are pressable, but they don't actually do anything. Interesting.
This one also is amazing when he tries to actually look at the tachometer.
And you even have a little RPM gauge right here, right behind the steering wheel, even though that shit you cannot see at all. You would literally have to be up like this, and then at the same time, if you up like this trying to look at the RPMs, you ain't paying attention to the road.
Did he not notice that the steering wheel is turned upside down and blocking the view? Then he mentions the Plymouth Breeze engine.
With this engine though, they should have gave it a little bit more. They can't give the same shit that's in the motherfucking Plymouth Breeze. You know what I'm saying?
Apparently he doesn't realize that the Plymouth Breeze was a 4-cylinder. Then he complains about road noise.
The road noise in here is loud. It's loud. That's like the rat ride. Yeah.
Then he complains about the rough ride.
I ain't gonna lie to y'all, man. This ride rough as
And again.
You feel every bump in this bitch though. Damn.
And yet again.
Well, you feel everything. You hit a bump and the whole steering wheel kind of go like, you know.
So again, if you're a big fan of the Prowler, you're probably not going to like this video too much. If you hate the Prowler, well, you're probably not watching this. But if you still don't like the Prowler, then definitely this is the video for you.
That should sound good though. It's cool. Got some good little kick to it too for a 2000. But the exterior wise, dope. You couldn't get a better looking car in 2000 than this car.
It looked like you literally driving a race car.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So the next one I'm going to go over is one of my favorite YouTubers and a favorite for many other people. That's Doug Demers. I'm definitely a fan of Doug. I've watched many of his videos. I enjoy watching him just because even if I don't like the car that much that he's reviewing, it's just fun to watch the different things that he says and the interaction he has with the car. Now, admittedly, I tend to like the videos more where he's doing older cars or cars that are not so great. I kind of like it when he trashes the car a little bit, especially like the Cadillac ELR.
39 miles on the electric powertrain for $76,000.
Or the Mitsubishi Mirage.
And you should thank your lucky stars you get that cup holder.
Or especially the Yugo.
Oh, come on, you can do this, buddy. You got this.
So I was relieved when I actually watched his Prowler video, and he wasn't too hard on the car. In fact, the Prowler video was the very first video I ever saw of Doug. He recorded this back in 2017, not too long after I got in my car. And my boys actually pointed it out. They said, Dad, you gotta watch this video of Doug and how he does the video about the Prowler. He's really good. So I watched it, and it is funny to watch all the different things he says about the car.
When you turn the steering wheel, the front fenders, which are separate from the vehicle, actually turn with it. So when you turn the car, you're also turning bodywork. My favorite thing about the Prowler's front bumper, you can stick your hand through it. I'm not really sure why, but I like it. You probably can't even see my forehead right now.
Visor literally blocks the entirety of the windshield. So I can see where the hood ends, but I don't know where that side of the car is. You catch the car in like the reflection, and it's like, I can't believe I'm driving this thing. This is just so bizarre looking. It just looks like nothing else on the road.
And he definitely mentions the horrible ride quality.
All right, the ride quality is horrid. It bumps around like crazy.
But in the video, I can tell that the car that he's driving still has the original run flat tires. So yeah, this one was probably really rough.
But that's part of the charm. I mean, you put up with stuff like that to drive weird cars. You know, Lamborghinis are loud and they're hard to get into. This thing is the bad ride quality. But if you want a cool, weird car, you got to deal with that kind of stuff. If you want a Camry, buy a Camry.
But I do like the fact that he mentions this about the car as far as the power.
And while a lot of people say this car is underpowered, that's not really true. No, it doesn't have a V8, but the Prowler has 250 horsepower and it only weighs 2,800 pounds. That's a better power to weight ratio than a BMW 340i.
So this video's had like over 3 million views, and this is still a fun one to watch.
and you're driving around in top-down style.
So later on, Doug did several videos with his friend Tyler Hoover from Hoovy's Garage, and in one of the videos, they did bring up the Prowler.
What about the Prowler? You can get one of those for 20?
A Prowler.
Do you like the Prowler?
I like the way it looks.
I love the way it looks.
Beautiful, yeah.
I have always felt the Prowler is my automotive guilty pleasure because I know, you know, it had a Dodge Intrepid motor and the 4-speed with auto
I see the auto stick and I think...
Now, admittedly, I was a little disappointed when I heard this statement about the steering wheel.
The steering wheel was like off the rim, Voyager. But
now, Doug even said in his video himself that that actually comes from a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
The Prowler's steering wheel comes from the Jeep Grand Cherokee.
But I guess I have to give him a little bit of slack because he's only done like a million videos.
And the Prowler didn't really. I mean, the guys who own them will tell you it did. Oh, it's 0 to 60 in 6 something. That's fast like a hot rod. Well, no.
At least if the motor blows, you probably get one of salvage yard for $500.
And the motors do blow, right? Isn't that, yeah.
Yeah, big problem with the Intrepids, yeah.
Now to be clear, the engine that was used in the Intrepid that was also used in the Prowler was the 3.5 liter that was in the Dodge Intrepid RT model. The version of the engine that was in the Intrepid that it was all the problems that it had was the base engine, which was a 2.7 liter that was in the second generation. From what I've heard, the engine in the Prowler, that version of it is definitely more reliable. But it is still fun to watch these two guys in action. So the last videos I want to go over are about a couple guys that call themselves the Straight Pipes.
I'm Yuri. I'm Jacob. And we're going for a drive.
One of the two members of the group, Djuzhen, is actually now an owner of a Prowler, and there's early videos. The first one he did, he actually went on and on about how much he loved the Prowler, and they get a chance to drive one.
We're driving my dream car, the 2002 Plymouth Prowler.
Chrysler Prowler.
It's still a Prowler, it doesn't matter.
And this was actually very fun to watch, especially if you're a Prowler owner, to watch how excited he was about the car.
The most beautiful car in the world. So this naturally falls in with all the coolest of cars.
It's in the list.
I want this car so bad. If anybody wants to sell me a Prowler for cheap, anything to do with a Prowler, let me know.
So actually, this was the first time I ever watched a video from these guys. And the reason I spotted it was because I was happening looking for stuff for Prowler, and this one showed up.
And don't forget to subscribe.
And yes, guys, I did subscribe, but there's a few things that they didn't actually get right. Like they mentioned that the gauges were from the Viper. No, I don't think they were.
With Viper gauges, I believe.
At one point, Jacob mentions that the fact that the mirror only shows the miles per gallon.
Your mirror shows your miles per gallon, not your compass direction, but your miles per gallon.
As I noted before, that this is actually a multi-function display, and you can actually see many things, not just that. And also the comments about the roll bar, or what looks like a roll bar.
This isn't a roll bar. You will die. This is just soft padding. This is actually a headrest.
This is a headrest, yeah.
But it was still cool to watch Yuri in action, constantly loving this car.
Cow catcher grill?
Yes.
Get out of town. Exposed wheels? Get out of town.
So the next time we see the guys in a Prowler, this is where Yuri was actually going to go buy a Prowler. And so this was a neat one to watch because the guy that they actually bought it from, I probably met him at one point because I'm pretty sure that he was at the 20th anniversary event. He's the one that has the 4-seat Prowler. In the video with Yuri, you can see him getting in that, and they're showing that there. And actually, I was able to see that car in person as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to ride in it. So in part of this video also, you see where Yuri is test driving an orange Prowler with a wrap on the hood. This Prowler was actually originally owned by a guy named Robin, who was a member of the POA. Obviously, he no longer owns the Prowler because he did sell it later on. But Robin was definitely one of the best people we had on the site as far as information that he provided. He was constantly responding to everybody's questions or comments about the car. He doesn't do it as much anymore since he doesn't have the car anymore, but I hope someday I get to meet him. It's also definitely funny to watch Jacob and his reaction to whenever the car shifts.
Neck snappingly fast.
And this thing about the Prowler bubble.
He told me it was kept in a bubble.
When you sent me that, I was like, get pictures of it in the bubble.
Send me a picture of the bubble.
We need pictures of it in the bubble. He literally kept it in a bubble in his garage.
So the next video the guys did was one where they were able to actually do an official review of the car. It's pretty cool the way they like how well the car drives.
Oh yeah, yo, she sends.
It grips right through.
It actually does.
No oversteer, no understeer, just perfect steer.
I find it interesting that Yuri keeps complaining about the fact that he has to keep putting the top up whenever he has to stop and leave the car.
Okay, driving a convertible is a pain because it gets loud and you gotta move the top up and down every time you park so people don't steal stuff from your car.
I used to own a Toyota Solara convertible, and I used to do that a lot too at first. But after a while, as long as you know where you're at and you don't leave something sticking out in the middle of the car, after a while you get used to it. You just have to deal with it. So in this one portion of the video, they talk about how well the exhaust sounds.
Here's what the Prowler exhaust sounds like. And here's a launch for the Prowler.
Now I can tell you it actually sounds a lot better from the inside. And I have to agree with Yuri that I don't like it being too loud. I know there's owners out there who've changed out the mufflers, put in the Sweet Thunder exhaust to make it sound a whole lot louder. I like it the way it is, and it gets really loud as it is when you're on the freeway. So to make it even louder on purpose, I think is a little too much. But yeah, some people still do it. Oh, and the comment about this about older women.
And then you know what the other demographic is?
Old people.
Older women, specifically. Ah, you like it? Way better than that Raptor, eh?
And then Yuri says that he's not going to drive it in the winter.
And I'm not going to drive this in the winter, so I don't need winter tires.
Well, I've got proof on Instagram that eventually he did. So then he mentions about the other videos out there for the Prowler and how he hopes that their video becomes the #1 viewing video.
It is going to soon be the most viewed Prowler on YouTube.
And then he mentions this one that's still at #1, and he wants people to not look at that one. Well, I did take a look at that one, and it's pretty funny.
Let's go grab ourselves a car.
Now, if you don't like a lot of violence or bad language, you may not want to watch this one, but if you don't mind that, check it out. It's actually pretty funny. So in their next review, Yuri actually was able to take his car to the track and had a professional driver drive it. I did appreciate the fact that somebody who's a professional driver was actually able to say several nice things about the car.
Oh, she's snappy off the line though. Sounds good too, I like it. Not bad, man. Pretty special experience to be able to drive this kind of car around a racetrack. It's actually a 3.5.
V6, yeah, so it's got 250 horsepower. It went up from 215 after the first 2 years.
Okay.
It changed to an aluminum block.
So then there's this comment about having the same engine as my grandpa's Intrepid.
It's the same 3.5 out of my grandpa's Intrepid actually, so.
Now that only would be true if your grandpa had the RT model, because the 3.5 was only available in that version. More than likely, he probably had the one I had, or even the smaller engine, which was a 2.7 or a 3.2. I also like all the other comments he makes. He makes a lot of good statements about the car.
See what a Prowler feels like when you drive it hard around a racetrack, and so far it feels surprisingly good. It doesn't have any scary understeer or oversteer tendencies so far. I would have thought with such a small front tire it would want to understeer a lot, but so far that was actually pretty good. What? How old is this? I think he said it's a 2001, so it's 18 years old.
And I definitely agree with Yuri wanting to keep his car as much as close to the original.
If it was our car, we would swap a Hemi into it or something, but you're saying you want to really like respect that it's...
I want to keep it original because the amount of stuff someone had to go through at a company to build this, like it deserves to stay this way.
But the best part of the video is near the end when you watch this guy singing. That's the best part.
Don't want Yuri to die when he's driving it home. He'd be like, Dave, you broke my f***ing car. Now I'm dead. I'm in the ditch because you ruined my brakes.
So finally, the last one I want to go over is the last one that they've done since I filmed this video. So on this trip, they actually went to go see their buddy Chris Fix, who lives down in New Jersey. I have to give Yuri credit in this video. He drives a significant amount of this trip with the top down. I tried that on my first long trip, and it was hard. It really messes up your ears, and as Yuri mentioned, the same thing to him. Also, how they have to keep stopping for gas because of how small the tank is, and he's also having the same trouble that many Prowler owners do, trying to get the gas into the tank.
Let's try to just press it in because it keeps clicking out. Come on, Yuri.
Also, when he has to cover the Prowler in a tarp, I had to do that one time too.
Not my fault.
Now he mentions when they were in Pennsylvania, these jug handles, as they call them.
Jersey has these things called jug handles apparently, so you can't make left turns, and it's really frustrating because you got to make a big right with like a jug handle thing.
If they think that's weird, they should come to Michigan and check out our Michigan lefts. And again here he mentions about the Prowler trailer, and yes, Yuri, you need to get a trailer.
And then I'm also thinking maybe I should get a Prowler trailer if I can, because if I want to go anywhere with my wife, like there's no room unless I have a pickup truck with me.
So at the end he makes this comment about road trips.
And I think the biggest takeaway I got was I haven't done like a serious road trip in like 10 years. So like just getting out the door and doing it, now I feel like I can drive all the time and I want to do more road trips.
So Yuri, yes, definitely, if you're interested in doing another road trip, we were supposed to have one here in April. We were going to have the Lone Star Prowler Roundup, which was going to take place in Texas in April, but thanks to the coronavirus, that got postponed. We're hoping to do it again in October. Now, I know it would be a long drive for you. It would probably be about 4 days. It's going to take me 3 days to drive. It's going to be the longest drive I've ever done, and you probably aren't going to want to go that far. But even if you guys could just fly down and take some shots, get some video of this, we would all love it. And I think you would love seeing so many Prowlers in one location. So definitely think about it, please. So finally, I want to talk about other videos that I want to do in the future. Due to the fact that we can't drive around as much as we used to, I won't be able to go to too many car shows anymore. So I'd like to offer any other owners out there who have interesting stories or interesting information about their car that they'd like to share. I'm going to provide my email address here, and I'd like you to contact me if you can. Definitely, I would like to be able to share your stories. We can do them via Zoom or Skype, or even if you just want to send an email and send pictures of what you've done. Either way, let's do it, because I'd like to be able to show other examples out there. My experiences are just mine, what I've gone through, but there's so many other people out there that have had many experiences, and I'd like to share them as well. So hopefully you'll be in one of my next videos, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching.